So Blake, you have the floor.
Thanks very much. So again, thanks for the introduction, Mark. Again, my name's Blake, and this presentation started from a discussion. I'll talk about some of the details of that. It was about 2 years ago that I was asked to sort of put something together, and then I presented to the Toronto Centre about a year ago, almost to the day. I've got some notes from that old presentation. I'll refer you to that site momentarily, and but I've done a bit of an update, and that initial presentation was to a Canadian audience, so this one I've made it a bit more general. So hopefully you'll find this all very useful. I'm going to talk about lots of tools that I use, and I think you'll be familiar with some of these. But you know, if you couldn't have any software tools or an app on your smartphone or something like this, if there was only one device that you could use to try and predict the weather, the one that I'm showing right now, that's what you would want. I'm amazed by how much we can sort of glean and learn from the sort of the classic barometer. So I'm showing an old analog barometer. I actually don't have one of these, but I've been shopping around. I found some really nice barometers by Fischer Instruments in Germany, and I'm thinking about it. I might pull the trigger and order one of their nice barometers. They're beautiful instruments. The snapshot, I forget where I got it from. I just grabbed it from Google somewhere, and you can see it's got two scales on it. One is, I think, in inches of mercury, an older scale, and then it has HPA, hectopascals, so a modern measurement, which is closely follows millibars as well. And maybe one of the easiest things about using a barometer like this is just that it's got icons. You can see the sun, and the sun with clouds, and then there's a cloud with rain on it. So if that black needle is pointing towards the sun or well in the sunny region, you know that you are experiencing or are going to have sunny weather for a while. If the needle starts heading towards the rainy cloud, you're going to have some cloud cover and then rain in your future. So where the needle is pointing is sort of telling you kind of what's going on now and what's coming up. But what makes it all the more powerful is that you use the movable dial. So if you're familiar with these analog barometers, you can move that gold stick. You can turn that, and then sometime later you look at the barometer and the black needle has moved. And if it's rising, you definitely have good weather coming your way. If it's falling, if the pressure is going down, then bad weather is coming your way. So a few pieces of information, where the needle is now, where it's been, and then where it is on that scale, is all very telling. So again, I'm really interested in these instruments, and I in all the weather resources that I look at, if they have barometric pressure, I pay attention to that. I look at those numbers, among other things. Again, a bit of sort of history there where this came from. I was actually watching an astronomy forum, occasionally talking on it, and a conversation started up in the late summer of 2020, and someone was getting excited about the impending weather based on one of the popular weather tools, and they said, boy, the transparency looks good. Tonight, you know, who wants to join me at a gathering place in dark skies? I want to do some imaging of galaxies and stuff. And I jumped into that conversation. I said, whoa, slow down, cowboy. Have you looked at the fire smoke data? because I knew that there was a lot of smoke in our area at the time. And I told them that the tool that they were using did not account for that. It was showing that the transparency was good, but they had to do kind of a little mathematical calculation in their head, given the amount of smoke, that they had to subtract that from the transparency rating. So if the transparency rating was 4 out of 5, they'd have to drop it to 3 or 2 out of 5, given the amount of smoke. So in the end, it would mean poor transparency, and that would scupper their attempts at doing good imaging of faint fuzzies, galaxies, or whatever in poor transparency. So I told them, you got to take that into account. And then our manager of presentations asked me to sort of talk about that, to share that in more detail with members. So this is where this whole thing sort of came from. If you're not clear about that, what the impact of transparency is, this is a nice little example. This image by, or these two images by Richard Wright are kind of showing you what you'll get if you image on an evening of good transparency versus an evening of bad transparency, or it simulates to a degree what you may see visually when you're looking through the telescope. If you sort of sit back a bit and maybe squint a bit and look at that left image, you can clearly see the core of the galaxy. You can see the dust lanes. That's obviously Messier 31. You can see the dust lanes going near the core, but it's amazing how big the extent to which the galaxy is when you can see it in good transparency. In fact, it fills the whole frame. It's cropped by this frame size. So the galaxy is huge, but we did not get that impression in that high-end transparency. And what sort of things affect transparency? How clear the air is affected by moisture, so the amount of humidity, the amount of particulate that can come from various sources, but mostly smoke. So again, you want to sort of be cognizant of or take smoke factors into account, as well as transparency predictions that kind of know what's going on. So astronomers closely monitor transparency. We also pay attention to seeing. I think transparency is sort of easy to relate to. That just the word makes sense, is how transparent is the air. But what about seeing? And this image that I found from the Brain Bank Northwest website is a really good example of poor seeing conditions, where the air is, our atmosphere is shifting and jumping around due to turbulence and variations and layers of the atmosphere. So the air is not steady. Seeing is about the steadiness of the air, how still everything is. And this is greatly affected by the jet stream. If you monitor the jet stream position, if it's right over top of your area, you're going to have poor seeing. You can anticipate poor seeing. Good transparency is good for galaxies and faint nebula, diffuse nebula, the faint fuzzies, deep sky objects in general. Good seeing is required for planet observing or imaging, or double star work, or observing the moon. You need good seeing in those conditions. And so it's a balance. We're always sort of struggling both, and you rarely get situations where there's both good seeing and good transparency at the same time, unless you're on a mountain or something like that. So hopefully that helps if you're a little bit fuzzy, no pun intended, on what transparency and what seeing means. And I'll be showing you tools that can reveal or give us more information about that. I also wanted to address that the weather resources that you might casually monitor are usually not appropriate. The nightly news, after the various news stories and so on, when they talk about the weather for the next week and so on, that is usually not at all useful for astronomers. They may say that the upcoming days will be clear, but that's not good enough for us. That when the person reading the nightly news talks about clear conditions, they probably just mean it's not going to rain or it's not going to snow. That's all. It's not a good indication of how transparent the air is going to be, which we're most interested in. Little sidebar comment: the person that's actually talking about the weather on the nightly news, you also need to know if they're a meteorologist. They might just be somebody who looks good and reads the script. so you got to take that into account as well. It also drives me crazy in the nightly news when they quote the barometric air pressure. I'm showing the common unit that we see in Canada in kilopascals. You know, a weather person will say the air pressure right now is 102.1. So what? That doesn't tell us anything. You need to know what the air pressure is in relation to sea level. You need to know if it's rising or falling. So those numbers are kind of meaningless information. They're without context. And it's very rare that they tell you whether the pressure is rising or falling. So again, a barometer can tell more information than that TV person can. It's partly because that weather nightly news is aimed just at the civilian. And they're just trying to answer simple questions like, do you need to take your umbrella out tomorrow? Or are you going to need to shovel the driveway tomorrow? Or do you need to lather on the sunscreen? Those are the kinds of questions that they're answering. And weather websites may also not be terribly revealing. This snapshot that they took doesn't tell us a lot. We're getting air pressure, given humidex or wind chill. We can see the nightly temperature. We can see the percentage of precipitation or the probability of precipitation, and that tells us a little bit about the humidity, wind speed, and so on, but nothing about transparency, nothing about seeing. So this web page here, I forget actually where I got this from, but there's barely anything that I can get from that. And these little icons, partly cloudy, still doesn't tell me a lot. Now, it is interesting to note on this web page, we have a night mode. So your favorite weather resource that you use on the internet, maybe look for that. See if you can flip to nighttime conditions as opposed to daytime. But a lot of these tools don't sort of have that. So my objective here is to help you get better at all of this, that the amateur astronomer, when they use good tools and learn how to read them, we actually become amateur meteorologists. And we get pretty good at predicting future weather conditions, and you can impress your friends and family after a while when you get sort of good at this. But we want to look for very specific information, obviously, and we want to look for appropriate sort of trends. But all of that will help you out, I hope. And part of the spirit of sort of this is that it will give you good information to make a good decision about whether you haul all your equipment out in the backyard, or you load up the car and drive 200 miles to a dark site, or whether you open the observatory roof in confidence that it's not going to rain or snow. So hopefully I can help you with all of this. I'll pause here just for a moment. Note that website. So this is where I produced my original materials, and I had a quick skim of that. So I think the stuff is still all relevant and sort of current and appropriate. It obviously it was written for a Canadian audience, but 95% of it's relevant for everybody. So rascto.ca/weather tools, or if you have a QR code scanner in your camera app, aim at that QR code and it will take you to that same website. So basically everything I'm talking about is on that website. So I've detailed written notes for you if you want to look at those, as well as listening to this presentation now or playing it back. Okay, here we go. You ready? So everybody knows this, right? I think everybody knows about the clear sky charts that are available for various locations. And if I can sort of do a bit of flag waving here, I'm kind of chuffed at this Canadian product. It's an amazing resource, and a lot of people are really impressed by it and all that sort of possible. And in the end, it's due to the type of data that the Canadian Weather Agency collects. And I'll talk specifically sort of about that and show that there. But the clear sky charts are a product of Attila Danko. He was the one that envisioned this, these sort of kind of bar charts here. And I'll explain how to interpret these if you're not real clear or they're new to you. So we have a cloud cover row. So white is bad, blue is good. So when I took this snapshot for the City of Toronto clear sky chart, you can see the Thursday at midnight, red lines denote the transition from one day to the next. At midnight on the Thursday, it's terrible. It's whited out there. But at midnight on Friday, not bad. So there's a window of opportunity on the Friday night. But Saturday, I can tell, gets bad again. So medium blue and then into white. So not real good. Second row, transparency. So that's where we were talking about how clear is the air. It's to be expected that if there's a lot of cloud cover, your air is not transparent. So there's usually a very direct correlation between the cloud cover and the transparency rows. Seeing is the steadiness of the air. So planet hunters, moon viewers, imagers, double star chasers, you want good seeing here. So the seeing's also bad on the Thursday, though it's clouded out. So Friday night's clear. Transparency is good early on, erodes a little bit, but it's still average or above average there. But the seeing is poor. That light blue color means bad seeing. It gets better after midnight, a little bit better, but it's not dark blue. So not great seeing there. So that's not a bad night for galaxies and deep sky objects. You can see the darkness bar, that's obviously showing you daylight from the sun, and then the transitions through the twilight phases, dark blue during the evening. If you see light blue in the night, that means the moon is intruding. So moonlight is factored into this. So those first few bars really useful. But you get other stuff here. There's the smoke bar. So dark blue is good if you get paint chips in here that are a light blue or gray for the smoke. That means that there's smoke in the forecast, and then you'll need to kind of subtract that in your head from the transparency. There's an indication of wind speed. Wind speed may be a factor for some observatories. Their telescope may shake or oscillate when the wind is high. Humidity, I pay attention to that. If the humidity is high, that just tells me I need to haul out more stuff into the backyard, my lead acid batteries or power cords and all the dew heating equipment. So red is bad for the humidity. That doesn't stop me from observing, but it just tells me what kind of equipment I need and what sort of conditions I'm facing. And then you got a temperature bar. Some people pay attention to the temperature. They don't want to observe in cold weather conditions or maybe extreme heat. So you get an indication of the temperature there as well. So that's the full display of the clear sky chart. And I don't know if you noticed it, if you have been a fan of these a year or two ago, they were expanded out another day. You know, of course, if we go farther into the future with weather predictions, it's more hocus pocus. So it doesn't go too far into the future, but that helps you do better sort of planning over, say, a whole weekend. Sometimes you'll see on a web page that there's a mini version of the clear sky chart, and it's only showing you the top two rows. So you only know just from that mini chart what's going on with cloud cover and transparency. Now, usually they're set up such that you can click on them, the mini link, and it will load up the full chart page. So then you can get the additional information that's missing. As much as I like the clear sky charts, there's nothing about the barometer or air pressure. So right away, that's one X against this, that it's not a complete or a perfect sort of solution for me, but I still heavily rely on this. And some people love it, some people hate it, but I find in general, it's a very good indicator for me as to what's coming. And I do a lot of my planning based on what I see on clear sky charts. Now, what I did here is I linked to a bunch of charts that are sort of in the area, in the Michigan area. Let me jump to one of these. Let's go to the Longway Planetarium. So let's see what's going on at that chart at this current sort of time. Let me just maximize my page here. Hopefully this will load. So there we go. Here we are now at the official page for this observation site. And you can see the same sort of data that we were seeing before. And you can see tonight, not good. Sunday, not bad going up to midnight, but the cloud cover is increasing. I can tell that from that top bar. The transparency is average, but getting worse through midnight, and then washed out. The transparency looks bad right at midnight. The seeing is not great early on. That's an average indication. Notice as I point to these paint chips, hopefully this will come up in the video, that you can see there's a little pop-up that appears. So it tells you empirically a bit about what's going on there. There's the above average rating for the transparency for 8 o'clock. Hopefully you can see that. And then I point to the medium blue paint chip for the seeing, it's average. A lot of people don't know this, but you can actually click on the cloud cover paint chips. So let's say I'm gonna go out at 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock and so on, set up the telescope in the backyard. So I'll click on the paint chip showing me what the predicted cloud cover is gonna be at that time. And I can use these next and previous arrows to jump from hour to hour. So that's nice. Do you see it? Kind of X marks the spot, or the big green plus is that observing site location. So that's good. You can get big picture stuff here. You can see we're kind of in a pocket, but people down northern Texas, really good, and Florida, top of Florida is looking really good. So big swaths of open clear skies there to the further south, but obviously lots of cloud in the north. I'll back up to the again, smoke details, humidity, and so on. Now, if you're new to all of this, you don't know really how to sort of read this or interpret it, it's a bit overwhelming. It's very simple. You just scroll down, get past the ads, and here's a built-in index on each page. How to interpret the cloud cover, what does transparency mean, what does seeing mean, how to interpret it. So lots of great sort of built-in index information on the page. And there's helpful little links down here if you want to copy something and include it in your own web page or blog or something like that. So quick look at the chart here. Now I'm going to go to another one. So let me just flip back to the presentation, and I'm going to go to this observatory. I believe this is just a private individual here, and they've got a site set up for their observatory, Beckstrom Observatory. The reason I want to show you this is because it is a sponsored sky chart. So you can see there's the logo. You can have your club or association logo and lights there. Some small businesses sponsor charts and so on. The nice thing about us, for us, is that this unlocks or opens up some additional data. So you can see there's another row, ECMWF. I forget exactly what that acronym stands for, but it's the European Cloud Weather Modeling System. So a bunch of European countries, they're using supercomputers, they're monitoring the weather in Europe and around the world. We have a feed coming into the clear sky chart that is giving us additional cloud cover information. And usually there's very high correspondence between the cloud cover row, that's the data from the Canadian Meteorological Services, and the European model. The two usually closely align. So you can see it's showing sort of cloud cover for the Canadian prediction tools as modeled but it goes clear at 7. But the European model is not as optimistic, but still, you know, there's good correspondence here at 2 o'clock out to 7 o'clock. So that strongly suggests that it's going to be clear in the late afternoon, early evening. But the European model said clouds come in at 8 o'clock. So who do you trust? Well, I put more weight in the Canadian data, it being close to home for this continent, but still, you know, pay attention to that. Another thing that gets unlocked is this table down at the bottom, the nifty links area. We have light pollution maps, we have historical data and climate data that the Environment Canada keeps, and then past charts. And past charts I find useful because a lot of times I put charts in my log notes. So the day after, I'll be writing up my sort of notes, cleaning them up from an observing session or an imaging run. So I'll pull the previous night's chart just so I have that on file. So it's nice with sponsored charts that you have that. So that's again one of the sort of little benefits to that alternate. So some charts here that I link to, those are not terribly memorable addresses, but you can look them up dynamically. Once you're in the website, you can search for nearby sites and so on. And again, that's a mixture of sponsored and unsponsored charts. Now, there's an app for the clear sky charts, one that's very purpose-built. It was made by Brian Gibson, another Canadian. He's in the Mississauga Center of the Royal Astronomical Society. And he built an app for iOS. This is only available for the Apple smartphones or tablets. But it's a very nice app. I used an early version of it years ago, and I know Brian. I talk to him every once in a while. So nicely done, and a nice built-in legend and stuff like that. There may be a product for a few tools that people use on the Android environment, but I don't know of one sort of purpose-built or specifically for that. Arguably, you could load the Clear Sky Chart web pages onto your phone. You could have those in your bookmarks for your browser, or your favorites on your browser on your phone. Although you're using data, you need a connection to pull them up, whereas this can work in an offline context. I almost forgot to mention this. It wasn't in my original presentation. I remembered it sort of the next day. In conjunction to the Clear Sky charts, I use Clear Sky Alarm Clock. So this is another person, Mark Kazaza, if I pronounce that properly. He built a tool that can pull in the Clear Sky chart data, but you can put constraints on it. So here's my profile. I have a profile for Toronto Conservation Wildlife Center, a couple hundred kilometers to my west. The observatory up north that I have used a lot in the past, my backyard or near where I live in Bradford. And I do remote imaging using a telescope in Halifax in Nova Scotia. So I monitor the weather out there. So I've set up constraints for all of those locations. And if the constraints are met, that if I have appropriate clear conditions, then I'll get an email. And this is what the email looks like. So when I get a bunch of emails coming in for a particular location, I'll sort of perk up. The Carr Astronomical Observatory is a 2-hour drive. The conditions have to be, and it's a dark site. The conditions have to be really good for me to pack everything up and make that drive. I'm not prepared to do it if the conditions are mediocre. So this is great. This tool saves me gas and making the trip for nothing. So I like that there. I do have it linked here. So let me just click on that image. That should load up the web page. And the address for that's not in the presentation directly, but it's clearskyAlarmClock.com. I'll leave that there for a bit. ClearskyAlarmClock.com is this tool. You just build a profile, and then you set up your favorite charts, and then you start setting parameters or criteria for them. So a great tool to use in conjunction with the clear sky charts. That to me is really useful. All right, I've been expounding on all the wonderful features of the Canadian tool, Clear Sky Charts, but there's lots of other ones. Clear Outside is actually made by a European company. First Light Optics is a store, it's a vendor in the UK somewhere, but they made this tool for their customers and themselves and local astronomers. But I find this works quite well, even though we're across the pond. That this is often in good correspondence to my other weather tools. I look at several, and I look at good correspondence between all of them. What I really like about this website is just how rapid or immediate it is in terms of making a decision. Should I observe on the Thursday night? No, red, bad. Oh, Friday night, green, good, all the way through the whole evening. So it's a simple traffic light system, red, amber, green. So look for green coloring and you're on the right. There's your moon phase over there, black circle with the glow, and then you can see the new crescent moon. You can also see the gray bars here underneath each one of these, and the gray is creeping along night by night. So that's the intrusion of moonlight into each evening. So down 7 days out to the Wednesday, you know, the moon's around till 10 o'clock or so. You obviously have a light bar with the sun, like the clear sky charts. They're including the twilight phases and so on. So you can set these up for various locations. Another benefit right away, again, to this tool, which is completely free, is that it goes out for 7 days. But again, when we're that far out in terms of weather predictions, that's mostly guessometrics that we're using. Let me click on the link here for the Dryden area, Clear Outside, and let's see how close it is to the actual so you can see it's tied to latitude and longitude. And let me just click here for a moment. So there's what the screen snapshot, you know, my screen snapshot was like, right? This collapsed view with the 7 days. Bad tonight. Okay tomorrow, but only at the early evening. That was what we were seeing in the clear sky chart. And then getting worse as it goes on. Next few nights are bad. Wednesday, and the moon's starting to go away. Wednesday is looking good to midnight. So that's more promising there. So let's say we're interested in that. We want some more detail about that. So when you click on one of the days, it expands and reveals. This is great stuff. You get a measurement of low cloud, medium cloud, high cloud. The International Space Station flyovers are marked. And when you hover, once again, over the paint chips that are here, you often get more details about what's going on. So there's when that flyover starts and ends and how bright it will be. Visibility, fog, precip, you know, I'll look sort of at those numbers. Wind speed and direction. So you're looking for high wind speeds, they'll start to turn orange and red. Chance of frost. So, that's not looking good. We've got clear conditions, but there's another factor here, of course. There's the air temperature. So, and this is measured in Celsius, but there's the air temperature, and I'm looking at the dew point with the feels like temperature, and they're very close. They're about a degree or two apart here. So that means the humidity is somewhat high, and that's why there's that chance of frost there. But there's an actual measurement of the predicted relative humidity, and it climbs up to high 70s. So not terrible. You can probably get away with not running dew heaters if you're below 85 or 80 or 75%. Hey, barometric air pressure, yay! And reading from box to box, I can see if it's climbing or if it's falling. So I can see it's hovering at 102.9 millibars through the evening, sort of hovers there, but then starts falling. Bad weather's coming. And I see it on the next day, clouds moving in. So that's that barometric pressure, again, telling us what's going on 24, 48 hours out. So lots of great information here. So that's a great one if you're not familiar with it. We have an app, runs on iOS and Android, free. You can save your favorite locations. You can see the little location button up at the top. Busy screen, lots going on in it, but a nice app, works quite well. Relative newcomer to these various tools is Astrospheric. Again, not sure if you've heard of this or seen this, but if you look closely underneath the map, which you can see it's got cloud cover in it, you can see that there's a cloud cover row, a transparency row, and a seeing row. Sounds familiar. In fact, if we were to scroll down on the webpage, you could see that they use the Canadian Meteorological Center for their weather data for the immediate short term. So very similar sort of things. They show a KP index. So if you're looking for aurora, wind speed, wind direction, the orange line is the temperature, air temperature row, and the blue is the predicted dew point. And again, if they get close to each other or touch, that means you're gonna be in high humidity settings. So you're gonna be frosted up in the winter, or you're gonna be dewed out in the summer. So you need your dew heaters when you see those sort of things coming down the pipe. Long range forecasts that go out about 10 days. There they use a different weather source for the long range stuff, moon phase indications and so on. You can see I've got locations here. So in the past, I've set up a couple of locations for different sites that I use, including the observatory in Halifax. And you can see that there's a red circle. If you just make it out, I've activated the Halifax chart here, and there's a big trough there, clear sky. So I can do some imaging with that system. They have a subscriber service, so if you pay some money to this, it unlocks a number of features in the tool. But you can use this for free and still get a lot of good sort of information from this. But let's have a look at it live, because there's some neat things that you can do in an interactive way with the tool. So again, I've programmed this for my profile. So there's Halifax again. It's looking kind of grim. I'm going to go to my backyard. That's the first one there. And I'm waiting for the cloud map to come in. Clouds everywhere. And there's where many of you are located. So we get these cloud cover maps. You can use map layers. Let me just jump into that for a second. You can look specific. I know that printing is really small, but you can look specifically at transparency, seeing what's going on with the jet stream. So if you know how to read the jet stream chart, you can look at where it is and tell you a bit about the seeing. So I'm just waiting for it to load. Here it's taking a while, and the purple is bad, but it's not really dark purple over my location or the upper part of Michigan and so on. You can see where the jet stream is indicated here. I'll zoom out a bit, give a bit more of your picture. What's going on with that? So this can be very informative to help you predict what's going on with seeing. There are overlays for light pollution here and things. So quite a useful map, and you can set that in motion, which is usually very instructive. So there's the whole chart. Lots going on. And if I'm looking again, I'm looking at the Sunday evening. It's looking like it's not bad early on. So I'll click at the 2100, 9 o'clock time, and all the little chips down here below have updated to tell me what's going on. It's awfully cold, zero cloud cover, transparency so-so, seeing above average in this condition. So I'll keep jumping day to day, and I see the clouds moving a little bit. And you should know that, I'm assuming if you're in North America, you should know that weather prevails west to east. So I'm watching these clouds over here from the west moving towards me. And as I move through more and more time slots, I can see they're getting closer and closer. And this time of year, of course, we get lake effect snow, and weather. So everything happening with Michigan and Huron and Georgian Bay and stuff, that all affects me sooner or later. And if I click on one of these very awful times, you can see total cloud cover, white down here for all the chips, obviously not good conditions. So a really good resource. Down at the bottom here, they tell you about what their weather sources are. There's good help information here. Again, subscription or payment here will allow you to use some of the club group services and use post in the photo of the month and stuff like that. So Astrospheric, pretty good tool, and the app available for Android and iOS is quite nice. Bit busy, bit crowded, but a good tool that very closely matches the experience on the web page. I use another tool, and this may remind you of what I was talking about before with the clear sky alarm clock, where I've set parameters or conditions. On the top part of the Good to Stargaze page are a bunch of criteria. You can indicate if you don't want to observe at a certain minimum temperature or below. You can indicate if there's a max for the humidity that you're prepared to tolerate. Similarly, wind speed, if it shakes the scope. Obviously, you want to set constraints for maximum cloud cover, maximum moonlight, things like that. You can also set constraints for seeing and transparency. And light clear outside, it uses a red indicator to tell you it's no good. If we read across this row, the 1900 7 o'clock row, I get green for wind, green for temperature, green for humidity, but the precipitation indicator is getting pretty high, 16% chance. So I don't want the telescope to get rained on. So that was a constraint that goes red. When a single thing goes red in the row, it means it is not good to stargaze. That last column is the quick summary for that time slot, if it's good or not. But I can see while the early evening is bad, it looks like it's clearing up. And then I've got a 5-hour window where all of my constraints are satisfied. So that would compel me to haul stuff out in the backyard or open the observatory with comfort. If you look at this website for free, you'll only see today and what's happening later in the evening through midnight. If you pay money, again, there's a subscription, then it will unlock 7 days. I had a trial membership for a while, and it was nice being able to see the full days out with this constraint system. I'll show you this again live, and how the constraints work. It's pretty easy to use. It's pretty straightforward. The online tool does not have a mechanism for keeping locations. So you want to set up locations by latitude and longitude and then just keep them in your bookmarks or favorites in your browser. And I'm in Ontario somewhere. I don't know exactly. That looks like it's near Ottawa. Nevertheless, I'm just looking out into the future here, and I can see that not good from 10 to midnight or through midnight here because of high cloud cover. In fact, the cloud cover is quite heavy during this time. So let me make that constraint more severe. I've said that the maximum cloud I'll tolerate is 85 right now. Let me drop that. So let's watch what happens when I drop it to 80 and then 75 and then 70. You can see I'm making it more restrictive. Now there's not good opportunities to observe according to that cloud cover constraint until 2 to 4 o'clock. So again, that shows you how sort of good this is, how dynamic this is. For your location, you actually get a light pollution indication measured in your preferred scale, Bortle or SQM or something like that. Lots of great information in this tool. They have a very nice app for your smartphone, free, Android or iOS. Extremely busy in the main screen here of the tool. And there's something that's a bit inconsistent, at least the last time that I checked it. When you have no constraint on the website, the cell or the box in the table is black. But here it's a dark green, and I find that quite hard to distinguish in this table between the light green and the dark green. You can sort of see how subtle the difference is in the color in this big sort of screen there. So I don't quite like that. That's a bit of a glitch or a little complaint that I have about it, but still a very useful tool. And again, you can keep your favorite locations here in the mobile app. So let's say you're watching TV one night and there's nothing on Netflix and you're going, I wonder if I should go outside, you know, and look at the sky. So fire up the app and look at the main initial screen that appears and read the top row. No, not good to stargaze. But when I look at it, I see the only violation here is the cloud cover, and I've set a low constraint, 10%. So I might think, well, that's okay, 10%, I'll ignore that, or maybe I'll elevate the constraint to 15, and now it passes, and then it would change to green, good to stargaze. So I get my butt off the couch and go outside. Little daytime indicator down at the bottom, and you can jump quickly days in the week if you've got a paid account. So nice tool there. Those are a lot of the apps and tools and websites that I use. Here's some other general tools that I use. I'm a big fan of the AWC, the Aviation Weather Center tool. This particular page is showing satellite imagery from the Noaa Weather Service. So you may be familiar with Noaa, and you know that they use the data from the NASA satellite. So you've got two governmental agencies working sort of hand in glove, and Noaa makes these weather data products that are for professional use and amateurs can use. Pilots heavily rely on the Aviation Weather Center, but I like looking at what's happening with the cloud cover here. In this infrared color diagram, blue is bad, red is good. And if you look closely in red, dark red regions, if you can see features on the ground, that tells you have transparent air. I can see little lakes beside Lake Michigan and some up here in northern Ontario. So that's very transparent air here, but it's a mess out by Ottawa and Montreal, and stuff rolling over Michigan there. But I use this a lot, and I watch the clouds move from west to east here. You can run it in black and white mode or visible mode. Again, in visible mode, I can see right down to the ground in many places here. So I know really transparent air here, at least in the daytime while I'm checking this. And again, I'll set it in motion. You can animate this, and I'll watch how the clouds are moving. Let's pop into that just for a second. Here's aviationweather.gov, and I'm in the satellite service, showing the whole continental states and much of Canada. And what I want to do is zoom into this area. So I use this little map down at the bottom, and DTW is for Detroit Windsor. So I'll click on that. It's going to zoom in now. And there's an infrared black and white image, but let me flip to color, and we're looking for dark red. There's none. So clean your eyepieces. Do testing of software. Let's set it in motion. I'll do the loop here, and we can watch how the clouds are moving west to east. And when you get experience with this, you can see the high level cloud and the low level cloud. And in the summer, you'll be able to see smoke as well flowing into areas here. So really, really useful imagery to look at. So I find that a very useful tool to see what's coming towards me over the next 6 or 12 hours. I'll look at the extreme edge of this, and I know that'll be on top of me in a half day or so. So great resource there. Here's another one also from Noaa, the National Weather Service, and this is specifically their graphical charts, their graphical forecasts, and they're using data from various weather reporting stations or sensors. Here, so you look at these numbers, and high numbers in this case in the sky cover chart are good. I use this from time to time because I'm situated right about here, but apparently the Noaa service thinks that all of Canada is covered in a thick sheet of ice. So I can't infer things directly. We don't have any sensors here, but I can still watch what's coming from west to east. Let's pop Do I have that linked? I don't have that linked, but I can pull it up if you're interested in it. That's a good tool. And again, you can animate it and set it in motion. So another good resource. Okay, back to home for me, Environment Canada. I'll use my local weather resources, or this I consider the horse's mouth. This is the official source of weather in Canada. All the other tools, the nightly news people, the weather network in Canada, they use this data, but they've got meteorologists on staff that can interpret it. But they're ultimately taking the data and using it. So I look at it too. I've got, my favorite cities and towns and locations that I'll use. But in the daytime, when it looks like it's going to be clear and I'm getting ready to observe, I'll come into it in the day to see what the current conditions are. There's air pressure. There's the trend. Yay, barometric information. And they'll tell me about the temperature now, and I'll look at the humidity now during the day. And if the humidity is high, then I know in the evening I'm going to need dew heating. I'll look at the wind speed there. Then I start looking at these charts or little sort of indicators in the table here, and I'll see what's going on. Friday night, you can see there's a moon against a clear sky with little pinpoint stars. Environment Canada does not improperly use these icons. That icon with the moon against a clear sky means high transparency. They actually use it, in the kind of correct way. If it's got a little cloud, then transparency is low. There's some cloud cover there. So when I see a bunch of moons on a star-sprinkled sky over a few nights, I get pretty excited there. So this Friday night on October 16th for Toronto looks good, and then I look into the next day. It's clear the next day. So that means that whole night's going to be good. Here, and then I'll read the information down below. I'll pull up one of these specifically to show the action. You can see I was thinking about observing last night, but it was really cold. But I noticed that it was going to be clear later in the week or early next week. So Tuesday night's good, and it's clear Wednesday morning. And if I read the notes down here below, sunny, cloudy periods in the evening. Tuesday night, sunny, clear. And then daytime Wednesday, sunny. So that's pretty well surefire that Tuesday night is going to be good. Cold again, but it's going to be good. A key point that I want to make or re-emphasize here, I'll go down through the averages and historical data and so on. There it is, weather resources information, astronomy link in Environment Canada. It shows you that they collect data that's useful for astronomical purposes. They collect seeing data. They collect transparency data. So that allows them to use this in data products that serve astronomers. And this data is managed by Alan Rahill at Environment Canada. And it was Attila Dunko that realized I can put this in a useful format for astronomers. So Attila and Rahill talked to each other, and Attila built all this great clear sky chart for us using Alan Rahill's data at Environment Canada. Okay, that's me tooting my horn there a little bit. You've seen that in my sort of quick review of all these products, that there's not one that does everything. So a lot of tools, I'm giving check marks to them, but there's some X's here that, and it is, again, Clear Sky Charts doesn't have barometric pressure in it, even though it's pulling the data from Environment Canada. So I use several tools together, and I look for high correspondence between a couple of different tools. And I use the Noaa data, the US American Weather Services, as well as Environment Canada. So I use a bunch of tools to figure out stuff. And what started this whole sort of talk and this presentation was the smoke. So back to Clear Sky Charts, we saw the smoke row, and keep an eye out in the summertime for the red warning bar. Underneath the Clear Sky Charts, you will see that a warning will pop up when there's significant fire smoke in that region. And they tell you transparency may be reduced. So that means you need to mentally subtract. Look at that transparency. It's on the Friday night, it's fair to good or above average. but you need to subtract 1 or 2 levels because there's modest smoke going on. You can see the gray chips there. The smoke gets quite bad on Saturday morning to midday. So that's not too bad. Then the smoke goes away for a little window, but that's early Sunday morning, so not great. So the smoke data is folded into the clear sky charts. Here's the a Canadian tool that I use, Fire Smoke. You can see that still reveals a lot of information about what's going on all through North America. You can see the number of fires are noted, those circles there. That's very disturbing in the summertime when you see high numbers. But the important thing is you can see how the smoke is blowing around in this animated image. And I'm sort of right here. I'll point to just hover over sort of the final O in Toronto. That's where I am. And right at the end, smoke comes into the picture there. So again, I look for that. Here's a US tool. There are a couple, but this is from Noaa. So this is the hired mapping system, the HMS. So again, same sort of deal. This can be animated. It tells you about the intensity of the smoke. It tells you where the fires are burning. So you can use that to predict what's going to happen in your particular area. Or if you are observing, you're going, why does the transparency suck? Because there's lots of smoke going on in that area. So you've seen I use a lot of tools, and in the summertime I start folding in smoke data as well for me to measure everything that's sort of going on. I pay a lot of attention to the barometer. I use weather tools that indicate what's happening with the pressure and the trend. Obviously, I'm paying attention to moonlight. Light cloud doesn't bother me. I'll do things, but I don't like to do sucker hole jumping. That's just annoying. I'll pay attention to the seeing and the transparency, but if values are low, that doesn't stop me from observing if it's generally quite clear. I'll just choose my targets accordingly if the seeing's bad or if the transparency is bad. The humidity, high humidity doesn't stop me from observing, but it tells me what kind of equipment I need and when I should fire up the dew heaters. There was an observatory that I did a lot of work at, and when the wind speed hit about 19.5 kilometers per hour from the northwest, the telescope would oscillate. I'd see vibration in it visually.
Turn on the lights.
I pay attention to lots of things. And I'll show you in a moment that I monitor not one, but several clear sky charts, and I actually have arranged them in a west to east pattern. So I can see the clear sky charts out in the west show me what's coming towards me. Now, if you're good at HTML, if you know how to hack web pages or build web pages, you can do what I've done. I made a portal. I made my own web page to collect or gather all the weather tools in one spot. This is one-stop shopping for me. So little 2-bar mini versions of the clear sky charts, but they're hyperlinked so I can go to the full chart. Little widgets from Environment Canada that are bite-sized, hyperlinked automatically to the appropriate page. I've got the moon in here. I watch the aurora from the Ovation tools from NASA. There's mini versions of the clear outside charts. I didn't mention that, but they have an analogous thing. And then down at the bottom, you can see that there's good stargaze and Astrospheric links down at the bottom of that page, among other tools, including AccuWeather and Telecast and so on. So I use a bunch of tools. Oh, the map there, that's a recent addition to show me where the jet stream is. And it's way below, when I took this snapshot, way below the Great Lakes. So that's good, clear for us there. So you can make your own page, or you could build one for your club or for your astronomy center if you want, or your observatory. So that's a neat thing to do if you're able, if you're familiar with that. I also keep tabs on the weather right on my Windows desktop. Old versions of Windows 7, I think, or Windows Vista, introduced this thing of widgets right on the desktop, and they got rid of that because of security issues. But I use a tool called Rainmeter that's secure and modern, and it puts these little applets like an analog clock. You can tell I like my analog devices. It tells me about my computer performance and network performance and stuff. Nice sort of weather tool, although I hack that to change the colors a little bit. But there's Clear Sky Chart mini bars, and I made that. I made those little apps in the rain meter environment. Again, sort of HTML programming a little bit, plus other stuff. But that was a very simple thing to do, is make those little indicators. And again, that's west to east. So I watch the weather sort of flowing across those locations. So that's something you could do too. Get the rain meter app for Windows, and get some useful apps. And I don't know if you noticed it, but the black circle there, that's the moon. So new moon, and I start paying attention to the weather very closely there. So that helps me, just as I'm using my computer through the day, know what's going to happen in the evening. Obviously, I've only touched on a few tools here. You may have your own preferred sort of weather tools, weather network, weather channel, underground, Meteo Blue. I used to look at the 7 timer tool. I don't know if it's still around, but it might be. And there may be other ones that I'm just completely not aware of that you may use. That web page, and I actually pulled up the Meteo Blue page. Let me just let it regenerate. So are you aware of this, that Meteo Blue provides seeing information? And it's a super detailed chart here. You have to go in the menu on the left, and you have to go into outdoor and sports, and there's astronomy seeing. So they have this really useful sort of chart, but this is new to me. So I'd have to sit down and sort of study this and look at it to know how to read it or interpret it. But you can see that the horizontal rows corresponding to our times. I was just trying to highlight a row there at 6 o'clock, and look at what sort of the seeing is. So I gather that if it's orange or red, that's bad. So we probably want sort of dark blue or green colors in here, I'm assuming. They also do neat stuff. This is a little bit like the stargaze. They're telling us about what planets are visible at particular times, and what the predicted humidity is, and so on. So that's a nice resource. Again, that's quite new to me, but that's something to look at. Multiple levels of cloud cover and so on. So again, lots of tools out there, and I've maybe just scratched the surface in terms of what's available. We can maybe talk about that if you have some favorite ones that you'd like to tell people about, or make sure people know about. So that's it. Can I do a little plug?
Certainly, go ahead.
The Royal Astronomical Society of Canada produces this publication, the Observer's Handbook. Some of you may have that here, but I'm just going to flip to page 72 and 73, and this is the frequency of nighttime cloud cover. So those charts, I'm probably not very visible or clear, but if you've got the handbook, go to page 72, 73, and that's your charts for nighttime cloud cover for all of North America, and that's really useful. That tells you just seasonally what you can expect for weather conditions, generally cloud cover conditions in your area. And a lot of people pay attention to that when they're going great distances, like eclipse chasing and stuff like that. That's a nice little resource in the Observer's Handbook for long range planning based on climate data. So just wanted to mention that as well. But I think that's it. So
great, fantastic, Blake. Thank you very much for that great presentation. If you have some time, we'll open it up to questions.
Sure.
If you'd like to ask verbally, you'll have to unmute yourself, or you can put a question in the chat. And Blake, we actually have 2 questions in the chat, I think, already. Do you want to?
I think Uriah was first.
Yep. Go ahead, Bob.
How effective are the tools at the individual predictors? Are there certain predictors that are really accurate and others that are not as good? For example, humidity versus cloud cover versus seeing.
That's an interesting question, and I hope I'm interpreting it correctly. I think that you've heard me go on now about air pressure. So I think air pressure is a very significant indicator of the general condition of the sky. So that's telling you whether clear skies are coming or cloud and rain is coming. Now that the barometer doesn't tell us anything about transparency or seeing. So as much as I like the barometric air pressure information, I'm just using that to know, are the next few days going to be good, and is it worth probing deeper? Is the upcoming weekend going to be clear? Should I make the trip to the observatory? I'll use the barometer for that, and it tells me to begin doing a more thorough search. I rely very heavily on the clear sky charts and the clear sky chart data source, Environment Canada's data source, for the transparency predictors and the primarily the cloud cover and the transparency predictors, because generally I want low or no cloud, and I want average or better transparency. And if I see those indicators, then I start really paying attention. I'm starting to think, okay, it's good to go ahead. I have a modest, telescope rig, but to take it from inside to outside to the backyard, I have a fairly good backyard dark sky. It's a 2-hour sort of ordeal to set all that up. If I don't have to do anything special, that's just visual observing, not bringing out camera gear and stuff. And I can tear down pretty quickly, but that's the messy tear down. If I do a slow, proper tear down and put everything away in the proper boxes, that's another hour or 2 hours. And I don't do that in one night now. I just don't enjoy that. I want at least 2 or 3 clear nights in a row back to back. And then it's worth it for me to haul out that big scope and all the bits and bobs to it. If I see 3 or 4 clear nights, good transparency and low cloud cover for 3 or 4 nights in a row, I actually get out my astronomy tent and I build my portable observatory, and I'll leave it out for the week. If I get a bad night in the middle, I don't care. If I get 4, 5, 6 nights in a consecutive run there, that makes me pretty happy. And by the end of that, I'm usually exhausted. So for me, it starts with things like the barometer, quick glances at the clear sky charts, and if I see low cloud cover and good, again, medium to high transparency, then I start going deeper. Then I start loading up all the tools and looking at everything.
Okay, Blake, Uriah has a clarification follow-up. He says, are the predictions pretty close, 80% of the time or 50% of the time? And Uriah, you're free to turn your microphone on and speak directly.
So with respect to accuracy, I would say, if I had to put a number to it, I would say 75% accurate. Some people I know, fellow members in RASC, they detest clear sky charts and they say they're always wrong. But I don't have that impression. I think most of the time it's pretty good. There's been a couple of times though where I've been euchred, where it looked like it was good and it didn't work out. But in some respects, I don't blame clear sky charts for that. I think weather can be very dynamic, and a prediction may be accurate, but other factors, this is obviously a very dynamic system, can change. And I don't think that the tools can necessarily respond rapidly enough. Something to be aware of with clear sky charts is it is only updated 2 times a day. So that means at the 11th or 10th hour, that data is getting stale. So I know, for example, that the Halifax charts update on the 11s, so 11 a.m. and 11 p.m. So sometimes I'll wait for the chart to get stale and then be triggered to renew, and now you've got a good snapshot. But that does mean that you could, if you've got really variant conditions, think about summertime where the weather is really variable with hot conditions in the day and then cool in the evening, and thunderstorms popping up and stuff like that. I don't know how weather people can predict anything in those sort of situations. So clear sky charts will get stale. Some of the other tools, though, I think Clear Outside does more frequent updates. Astrospheric uses long range predictors that are more frequently updated. So something, I can't answer some of those specific questions about how frequently the tools update, but whatever tools you're using, that's something to look into. Answer that question for yourself. How frequently does this particular predictor update? And that'll tell you how stale the data is.
All right. Would it be easy, Blake, to back up to your aviation weather
Sure.
page?
Yeah, no problem.
Veronica is asking, want clarification on the web address.
Yeah.
And she has posted it on the chat, if it's easier for you to take a quick look at that.
What she typed in looks right. And I'll just go to that. That's 23. Here it is. And then there. So aviationweather.gov/satellite. And it looks like what she typed is right.
Okay.
So she asked, is that the link? Let me click on the link here that she typed in. Just validate it. Let's see where we end up. So that's now at first, if you're going, hey, that doesn't look like what Blake showed. Again, what you need to do is scroll down if necessary, look into the U.S. regional images section. You'll see it's not quite state by state, but you'll see that there's letters in various places. So find the 3-letter code near where you are and then click on that. So for people out in California, looks like the LAS is what you would use. So now you're zoomed into the local chart over California and so on. There it is. So again, if I back up, when you first load the satellite page, you're dropped into a continental one. So then click on the region to get to drill in. And
all right.
There's the Michigan one. Okay, yeah. So I clicked on her link and it's good. She spelled it right.
Good deal. This was from Ed G to everyone. This was a great survey and overview of weather forecasting tools for the astronomer. Thank you, Blake and RASC.
Thanks, Ed.
And next we have one from Doug. I'm not sure which Doug. If you want to speak up for yourself, you can do that. I know both your Dougs can turn on your microphones.
As Doug Bach, I'm the one who put the text in. I just mentioned that. Hopefully this isn't echoing anything. It's the first time I've used Zoom on my laptop because it works here. It doesn't work on my main computer. But anyhow, I use 4 or 5 tools. If they all agree, chances are they're right.
Yeah.
If it's 2 one way and 2 the other way, the chances are you flip a coin, basically. But the biggest problem we have here in Michigan is it can say it's going to be clear all night, but these tools do not effectively predict lake effect cloud cover.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest problem we have.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'll have all 4 tools say it's going to be clear for the night, and then the clouds up by 10 o'clock because of the lake effect coming across during the day from Lake Michigan.
Doug, between that and the problem with smoke, which has actually, for me, been the biggest booger for the last 2 or 3 years, because you get good seeing conditions, and then the smoke's so bad you can't see hardly anything. So the smoke is a big factor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but some of the tools have smoke maps too, so you can check
They do
those
now,
out.
yeah. They've just brought them in though, most of them.
All right.
I forgot to mention that Astrosphere now is working on an amalgamated model that they're doing exactly what I was telling people to be careful of. That is, he's taking the transparency data and then effectively subtracting from the transparency by integrating in smoke data. So Astrospheric starting to do that on the fly. And I forget how he words it exactly, but it's I think he calls it ensemble weather prediction. So his transparency it'll show a special icon as opposed to just the piece of glass, and it tells you that he's using the ensemble model where he's integrating the smoke and the transparency data together.
So it looks like they're moving in the right direction anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, Perry Pelham asked, let's see, that was very great information. As a new guy, I look forward to meeting everyone in person. When the COVID restrictions ease up.
Perry is located up near the nature center, I think in Owasso, he said.
And Veronica says, thank you for clarifying the link. I regularly use Clear Dark Sky Astrospheric, AccuWeather Astronomy, and an NWS graphical chart for cloud cover, temperature, dew point in my observing area. Where would that be, Veronica?
It's in Florida.
Hi there. Yeah, Northeast Florida. Can you hear me?
Right. Yeah,
Yes.
we did.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Just trying to.
Yeah, that National Weather Service graphical chart, I think, is pretty good for the cloud cover.
Yeah.
It's like you all say, trying to get things to agree, all the different tools, they don't always agree.
Yeah. And I didn't have
let's
that
see.
address. I'm just checking my notes to see if I have that address somewhere. Or do you have it handy, Veronica? Could you share the link to the graphical
Oh boy.
forecast?
Yeah, let me go to one.
Okay.
You can put it back on this chat and then everybody would get it.
Yeah, cool. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see, Layla and Paul Snyder, you mentioned an aurora predictor site. What is your most useful site for aurora weather?
Again, I use a bunch. The one that was in my snapshot is the Ovation tool from NASA. Let me see if I can get to this quickly. I don't remember the address right off the top of my head, but it's the NASA space weather resource. Oh, I saw it pop up there. Yeah, space weather enthusiasts, that's what we want. Right. So this is really good information, but it's technical. But the top of this page, you're looking for, again, red, yellow or red indicators here. And then these charts, you may be familiar with some of these charts. And this table, again, while it's technical, you can sort of read this, just skim down through the chart here, down through the day column. 3, 3, 2, 2, 2, 4, that, not very good. We're not seeing 5s or 6s or things like that, if you're familiar with the KP index. So when you see KP index numbers going 4, 5, 6, and higher down through a column, then you know it's coming, that it's better. And that image that I showed is from the Ovation model, linked in here. So there's the Ovation page. You can see the aurora sort of sweeping around here, but not sort of anywhere near us. at this stage. If that green obviously starts going over across of your state or territory or province, then you know you've probably got visible aurora if there's no cloud around. So this is a great resource. There's tons of apps that are available on iOS and on Android. The Android apps, I've been looking at a lot of them, and there's not one that kind of blows my socks off. But there's a fair to good one for the Apple platform, and it's called Solar Monitor. So the Solar Monitor app for iOS is the best Aurora app that I've seen for the iOS platform. I'm still looking for one that's as good as it on Android. I've tried a bunch, and there was one I was using for a while, and now it's gone. It's not updated anymore. So the search continues for a good Aurora app. But Space Weather Prediction Center once again from Noaa, it is a great resource for general Aurora information, and they have all the graphics that you've seen around. So I have a link into my portal page for this Ovation tool here, and you can use that for the North Pole or the South Pole.
Good. Veronica has posted that link that we were looking for, so
great.
everyone can get that for her Jacksonville area.
Yeah.
Just go to your chat and scroll through the messages. Look for one from Veronica with a long link on it.
Yeah, those are nice graphs. That's for classic meteorological data. I was looking for the graphical chart, but this is very close to it. It's probably in here somewhere. I would just rummage around a little bit. But sorry, I just don't. Oh, what did I see there? Hold on. I think I just spotted it. So graphical. I have to do a bit of digging to get right down to that page that I was looking at. Let's see, can I click on the map? Oh, that's still the whole continent. So anyway, in here, you know, there's lots of great tools. You got to sit down and go through your National Weather Service site. It's full of great stuff. So lots of good resources there. Yeah, check it out.
All right, Z Gendrikovs, if I pronounce that correctly, says, I use the spaceweather.com, which also has a graphical view. And personally, Bob, uses that just to see if anything is getting close, but that's, you know, a snapshot. It's not really a good long range look.
Yeah.
Okay, and we have another. Oh, go ahead. Yeah,
quickly, space weather. I look at it every day, and it's good for sunspot chasers. And they do have indications here of what's going on with respect to aurora. And there's that aurora oval from the Ovation again. So this is a very rich resource. There's lots going on, way more than just aurora. Here, but this is basically information about the sun. But you will find aurora information in here as well. So I don't use this for atmospheric sort of analysis, but I use this if I'm trying to identify sunspots, or it's one of the things I'll quickly check for aurora. It's not my first resource though for aurora checking now, though. But still got it there. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, the last note that I have is from Lela and Paul Schneider, who are saying, great, thank you. And I would like to add to that. Yes, thank you for that very much.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Have any other questions? Just turn on your microphone and ask.
I just want to say thank you. It was a great presentation. Enjoyed every minute of it. And I loved learning about the little paint squares where you can click on them and expand them.
Same here. I never knew that.
Yeah, I
good.
learned some details about some of those apps that I wasn't aware of too, so thank you.
Yeah, and again, one could argue that you should do a deep dive into these tools. I've done a really high level sort of snapshot of what's going on in these tools, but there's more to all of them. So dig deep into these, explore them, try out all the sort of features and displays and so on. You might be surprised at what you find.
Oh, yeah, there's one adder, again, Z and Drinkoff has asked, is there a listing of all the links available?
Yeah, but indirectly. So that website that I told you about, this is the only one that you need to know. So let me go to it and then I'll copy it into the chat. So this is the article that I wrote a year ago as a companion piece to this presentation. So I talk about adjusting for smoke. I talk about the barometer and trends. I talk about clear sky charts, links to Canadian ones. I talk about the apps. There's the update that I added for the clear sky alarm clock. So all the links are in here. So that's your resource with all of the links that I shared with you. It should be pretty complete. If there's something missing or broken, let me know and I can update that page or do a revised page. You can see at the end, I talk about portable weather devices as well. And then a technical remark about barometric pressure. And if you have a barometer, you have to calibrate it. Lots of people have those home weather stations.